Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and we're really excited to share some information with you today because, unfortunately, we can no longer wait. The amount of successful attacks that have been taking place recently, driven by and advanced by AI, is something we just simply cannot ignore anymore. So, today we're going to keep this very short and to the point, and ideally answer some of your questions within there. So, I think if just for us to start off with, the way today's going to work is this is the basic intro. We will be. I'll introduce you to Roy shortly. He'll take you through things. We are going to discuss a little bit around the landscape. And then I'm going to dive into some of the things we've actually seen in the wild, so to speak. And throughout, please, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A section, and we'll answer all of those as we go forward. So, without any further ado, so as the professionals would say, I'd like to introduce you to our SA Africa Sales Director, Roy, who is going to walk you through where things are at the moment, give you a brief intro into some of the pains and problems we're seeing, and go from there. So once again, thank you very much for joining us, taking valuable time out of your day, and over to Roy.
Thank you, John. Just let me know that you can hear me. Are we good to go?
Yeah, I got you.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is actually a very special moment for me because I've only actually done 6 slides. Normally I do 25 or 30. So it's definitely not going to be a death by PowerPoint. It's really just 6 slides that I'm going to take you through. But just to what John said earlier, the reason we've kind of fast-tracked this webinar is just to orientate people around what we're seeing across many of our customers at the moment. We're seeing these advanced phishing emails that are getting through the traditional filtering that are starting to cause havoc. And the challenge, of course, is that they're stealing credentials. And I always say this, when someone has your credentials, that's the treasure trove to all your data, your calendar, your mail, everything on your digital platform. So really concerning when we're starting to see a lot of this happening on a daily basis. So as I said, let's just jump into some slides. I'm going to share my screen once. And let me just share on the way. Yeah, just to let everyone know, John's sitting in London. Yeah, perfect. And I'm sitting in Johannesburg, so we're not exactly sitting next to each other. All right, so let's just condition why we're seeing this problem on email. So some of you might be familiar with some of these statistics, but if you want to orientate around how popular email is, there's probably 1/3 of a trillion emails being sent every day. I think the exact number is 347 billion emails being sent every day. And what we're seeing is that a lot of the corporate customers or commercial customers or essentially people working on mail are sitting on 2 very popular mail platforms, and that's the Google Workspace, or the G Suite as commonly known, or what's very prominent here in South Africa is Microsoft 365. So it's essentially those 2 platforms that are primarily what companies are using. So essentially, what does that mean? That means that all the hackers out there, the threat actors, if they're building weaponized tools, they're generally building them around against those 2 platforms. And the third element that's worth noting is there's more email addresses on the planet than there are actual physical human beings. So email has become a very pervasive, kind of flexible tool that the hackers have been using. What is an interesting stat that's come out quite recently is that 62% of mails are being opened on mobile devices. And if you think back 5 years, it's nearly doubled up. And we're continually seeing that more and more. And if you think about how we work, I mean, as we roll out of bed, the first thing we generally all do is pick up our mobile phones and go through emails. So essentially, what does that mean? That means that if there are weaponized mails in that mobile device, users are often going and clicking on them, and hence why this is becoming such a problem. All right. So the traditional way of of securing email has been on these three buckets. I call them buckets, but it's looking for attachments. Attachments allow the ability for a hacker to embed some malicious code in there. And that code could, in essence, go and scrape, let's say, your web browser credentials and steal all your usernames and passwords. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the credential harvesting happening. The second is impersonation. So often people, they very rarely go and look at the email address in detail and presume by looking at the name that it's covered. But what we are seeing as well is without proper DMARC enforcement with SPF and DKIM, those mail domains are also easy to impersonate, and hence that being another problem. And the third way, of course, is these malicious URLs. So these are the traditional ways that we've been securing mail for the last, 15, 20 years. They will continue to be important. It's not like moving to a sort of new technology. These are going to be ignored. But what you really want to do is augment or improve checking of mails on top of these three buckets. All right. The next thing that's changed is that our work has changed. The way we're working has changed. So in the past, we would only receive these URL links or these phishing links over email. But what we're starting to see a proliferation of links being shared over collaboration tools. And think about your working environments, how many collaboration tools you're using. And many of us in our average day are probably pivoting on 2 or 3 simultaneously. So it's not just the emails that are coming in, but we're also receiving a lot of correspondence with embedded URLs coming across in these collaboration tools. So that has changed significantly. And what hasn't changed is the human elements. And I've kind of put it in the bottom there, the weakest link. And essentially, I think that's the other element of worry is, you've got, a blast of mail messages coming in that are sometimes very difficult to read through who they're coming from. And some of them are extremely compelling. Then you've got all these web links. A lot of people have also lined up, things like WhatsApp desktop. They've got a lot of web apps that are running on their mobile phones and they're running the applications on their PCs. So now you've got this, just a bombardment of kind of collaboration correspondence coming through, coupled to the email feed. And then we're calling it phishing 2.0. And I love the way this is framed. Anyone lose a dog. And this is what's happening. They're playing on heartstrings. It's very easy to do a social media scrape on someone and understand very, very deep information around that particular person. In this case, you could be, donating to the SPCA, or you could, you're posting all your new puppies that your dog has had, etc., and you then go and see an email around someone who's gone and lost their dog. What's the first thing you're going to go do is probably go click on that link. And hence, this is the essence of what's happening. The hackers are weaponizing around using tools that will go scrape all these digital profiles that we all live in every single day and build a weaponized campaign based on exactly who you are. And that pretty much is the challenge. I thought this is a nice way of looking at it. And if you read through, your hackers don't hack into networks. They don't hack your endpoints. They log in with the very credentials you access we provide access to. And that is a big concern, is making sure that you're locking down and protecting your credentials. So what do we know? John, and this is pretty much my last slide as well. So cyber criminals are exploiting AI. And if you look at the stats, there's been over 1,200% increase in phishing emails alone this year. We are seeing it across our grid with very specific emails that don't have a malicious attachment. There's not a phishing link in that mail, and it's coming from a legitimate source. But what they're trying to do is get you to click onto another site, possibly a SharePoint link, or something that's actually legitimate. And when you land in that page, that's when the weaponization happens. That's when they're getting you to move laterally and then go down into a rabbit hole. And that's where the exploit is happening. So the traditional tools are not scaling, as I mentioned earlier. The other thing that's also very interesting is a lot of the sophistication you're seeing in endpoint security. There's probably 30 or 40 vendors at any one time producing very sophisticated endpoint security. What's happened is the hacker community, or the threat actors, are now pivoting to these social engineered campaigns, and they're moving back into email security. And what they found is that a lot of the companies that were using traditional means of securing the email are actually falling short, hence why we're having this chat with you today. So Don't forget email. I think it's super important, but don't forget about your collaboration tools. People often don't even think about that. And then the last part of that is don't forget about your mobile devices. As I said earlier, 62% of all emails are being read on a mobile device. And we think we're building this fortress in our environment, but what we're doing is you've got a particular user that's accessing all company sensitive information and they're doing it with their own device. So just think about that. And keep in mind that humans are going to continue to be your weakest link. I think it's understanding the human element of it and understanding how easy it is to social engineer some collaboration with that individual that will essentially lead to them doing something silly. All right. So, John, I can hand over back to you. That's my 6 slides. And that was my 9 minutes that I was allocated. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you, Roy. It is truly, it speaks very clearly as to the gravity of the problem. If we are able to get Roy to stick to only 6 slides and 9 minutes, we know this is a very important message that we have to pass on. Absolutely no doubt in that. So just moving on from what it is that Roy is touching on, and dive back into our presentation. I think for those of you who are not sure at this point, as to what it is that J2 does, what are some of our core features and core messaging is around, is that J2 as a business, we've been around since 2006. We work with businesses of all sizes, and we're very much focused on building resilience because resilience brings about security. We do this through our framework, which provides very simple controls against the 5 key areas of digital risk. So Roy mentioned the users there. We also believe that with the right support, ultimately we can make that the strongest. Today, we're obviously heavily leaning in on the email aspect, even though, a reminder, all of these items do move and touch across all segments of our business. I thought I'd jump off with a few interesting stats, or I find them interesting. Hopefully you do as well. And ultimately, this is from the National Cybersecurity Center, and they tell us that successful cyber attacks happen every 11 seconds. $10 trillion worth of damage. We can't even comprehend really the size of that. Millions of complaints, and up to in excess of 90% of this, the key part here, in excess of 90% of all attacks start in email. 60% of these, which are aimed at businesses that have fewer than 250 employees. When looking at it in terms of a country, if cybercrime was a country, it would have the 3rd biggest GDP on the planet. That is a staggering statistic. And when then reviewing it against that 60% base, my very simplified mathematics tells me that that's worth about $6 trillion. So if you look at only that element of the cybercrime problem out there, which has been sped up through easier access through AI, it would still be the 3rd biggest GDP in the world. Some really frightening facts which I have come out recently is that as much as a little over 12% of every single email being sent, was several billion a day, 12% of those are written using AI, generative AI, large language models. This includes phishing attacks. This is what's made it so easy for attackers to do it. And hence the 1,200% increase in attacks. The entire process has been automated using AI capabilities. This includes the targeting, the initial compromise, and the movement by learning automatically going through these pieces. We've seen the use of malicious Azure apps that are deployed automatically once the attackers are within the environment. This means that often, virtually in every instance we've seen over the last 3 weeks, that this automatic deployment, the people within the entity and within the business don't even know that has happened. The modern threats, most of them do not even contain a dodgy URL or a different attachment, which is the primary step in the compromise. What we're seeing is a move to a mobile device, another messaging platform, or other items along there to speed this up. Social engineering attacks, phishing 2.0, as Roy likes to content. massively on the increase. And multi-factor authentication is exceptionally powerful, but it's not enough. One of the key reasons for that is if we have a look at the way the attackers are now launching these, is essentially the attacker sends out a whole range of phishing emails using AI, so low risk, out to millions of people, and they have very cheap to buy attacker in the middle infrastructure in play. This is where they imitate login pages, other credential theft areas, etc. The difference is that the attackers now, this is all automated. When the user sticks their credentials in, it actually takes it through to the legitimate platform, whether it's 365 or whatever other piece they're trying to exploit. When it comes back, it'll ask for the multi-factor token, which they do automatically and in real time. The attacker then steals that credential and gains what's seen as legitimate access into the environment. So here, as Roy mentioned, it is not a hack. The attacker hasn't hacked anybody. They've simply logged in. So some of these examples would be the standard, your account's been compromised, takes you to a fake login credential and people stick in their details. This is less relevant now because we've gotten better at detecting these. Some of the items that we've seen is, for example, when they're after a credential, this is one of the South African versions, and in a month or so, you're going to see the same kind of things coming out of HMRC. So it's actually using a legitimately compromised account. As you can see, every single legacy data security protocol was passed. So therefore, if you rely purely on traditional email security, the likelihood of this getting through is massive. Right? This one does have an attachment, which then running through the AI model does detect, because it takes all the steps within the sandbox, that it is actually a credential stealing item. This particular piece this is where it was stopped. So ultimately, it comes to another letter of demand. That letter of demand then links to the detail page for that and asks for the credentials. This is where information is lost, people gain access, etc. We're also seeing a massive uptake of impersonations of actual executives within organizations, whether it's executives of the organization, that our organization, or suppliers or to us. We actually see with this protocol, there was one piece, the DKIM's not correctly sent up, but because it's come from this legitimate page, it could just be a slight DMARC failure. And if you're not enforcing and looking at these as in conjunction with other indicators, there's a chance that you're going to create an issue. So this particular attack had no links, no attachments. The idea here was that initial communication would then move you to an external source, a different messaging platform, to be able to start that, to continue with the attack. We have one more example where a person has impersonated someone within a business using a free email account about payments. And here they're using the current state of flux in terms of in regional politics to now try and drive people to another environment in order to get payments, ultimately to take over their accounts. Once you go in, you capture your particular wallet and they steal that data. I want to point out once again that this is a very legitimate attack, and relying purely on traditional pieces would have passed every security check. This email would have ended up in one of your people's mailboxes. And when we employ someone, for example, we employ someone in finance, we need someone to be good at finance and accounts. We don't need them to be cybersecurity experts. So we need to bolster and help them make the correct decisions. We're seeing several different kinds of attacks. Again, all of these sent automatically with legitimate compromised credentials, or alternatively by imitating these. We're seeing lots around buying Apple gift cards and similar items, or moving people to other platforms, especially new hires. We see it in our business, for example. I know for a fact, within 24 hours of anybody announcing that they've started a new role at J2, If we look in the back end, we can see the number of attacks that are stopped from everybody, from me sending emails asking them to buy me Apple gift cards. It's frightening, and it happens automatically. We're seeing those items again. In a meeting, I can't take a call. It's very urgent. All of these kind of things that get people to respond is what's out there. If we're not analyzing this with our own with our own AI-driven models to protect ourselves, we're literally just waiting to become a victim. Just last week, there was another customer who had not implemented MFA correctly, and they called us in a flat spin because their entire environment was taken over, whatever the word is. So essentially, what that is the attackers got in using a phishing campaign. They then were into their Azure environment, deployed a malicious Azure app, and automatically deployed it to all of their users. Within a short period of time, everything was shut down. This is where understanding a whole range of items as to what makes something dangerous. So in this environment, ultimately what the AI detection capabilities will give us, it will check things like domains. Where is this coming from? Have you ever spoken to these individuals before? What are the email addresses? Is something you usually engage with? Yeah. What are they asking you for? What is the actual items that they're after? Is it urgency? Are they wanting to buy something, pay something, or help with something, or move to a different communication channel? This, of course, using these models that are designed to protect your organization from these particular attacks, gives us the intent of this message, which allows us to accurately score it. Again, I want to stress the fact that we want people in our business to do their jobs, no matter where they work from, whether it's at home, coffee shop, or wherever it might be. We want them to do the things that they're good at. We cannot expect them to be cybersecurity experts and make all these decisions in real time, almost all the time. We must bolster this with an array of AI-driven detections that all happens in the back end without you ever seeing these, whether it's around things where there is attachments or not, whether it's just the language being utilized. These are the kind of things that we're deploying within our customers to make sure that we have the ability to fend off advanced business email compromise attacks. Without the use of AI, you have the probability that you will get a lot of attacks through. And the other side is you could delay people actually performing their work. We heavily stress the requirements to look and consider our 365 security monitoring service. In the event that we are tricked, because as people, we are so easy to fool. We're emotional, we're driven by concerns, we're trusting. If for some reason our credentials have gone into the wrong hands, without visibility, we're not going to know that it's there. The 365 security monitoring service gives you that capability. You'll know it's impossible for me to log in from the UK, Japan, and South Africa at the same time. As soon as these kind of things happen, we know there's an issue. If you have duplicate session tokens on various IPs, that's probably a problem. And this will allow you to also harden the entire environment. Along with AI detections, you get great layered security around email. We could also consider deception technology. So our new released Honeypot Honeypot options are there, which is essentially like a digital phishing trap, right? You throw in the bait, made to look like a real system. So a database, a piece of sensitive information, password data, all fake. And that gives us the ability then to continue their help. This acts as an early warning system to know that you're being attacked, that who it is, when essentially CCTV that tells you there's someone at the door rather than sitting inside the bedroom. It protects actual information and systems, because if we have attackers fiddling with fake stuff in the honeypot, they're away from your real environment. Highly affordable, additional security layer, aids with compliance measurement, and it gives you that gap between a full-fledged, full network monitoring option. And it lets us learn how attackers operate. When you know how you're being targeted, by who, is it an internal or external person? If it's an internal person, there's another whole issue of concern there. But once you know that how they're being targeted, it makes things just that much simpler for you. It is absolutely vital that we use the capabilities of artificial intelligence, of machine learning, of the ability to crunch tens of hundreds of thousands of data points to identify risk against your business. The key thing for me is that we cannot protect the business in isolation. This does need to be looked at as an overall security mechanism. But please, I urge you, if you have to choose one place to start in terms of bolstering security, what we've seen, what we're seeing at the moment, for all our good, let's start with mail. It's easy to add additional pieces onto there. So as we close out, see if there's any questions. I think one of the things I really want to point to is we cannot protect what we cannot see. And we're big proponents of ensuring visibility across the entire attack surface. By building resilience, you get visibility. And essentially, visibility gives us the capability to respond. The key things are no one really cares too much about cybersecurity, get a bit of lip service until some attacker somewhere forces you to think about cybersecurity. So, as was promised in the piece, we would love to hear more from you, ask some questions. We do have the ability to do a no-charge email risk assessment across your environment. Essentially, we'll do the analysis, scan, show where these holes are, what malicious or unwanted or dangerous email is already within your environment, and that's done at no charge. Second to this, as another public service, I'm happy to help you to see if your credit card information is perhaps being shared online in one of these dark web forums or under the underground marketplaces. So all I'm asking is use any of the email addresses there, or you can message me on LinkedIn. But ultimately, just send me the credit card number at the front of your card, the expiry date, and the 3 digits in the back, and I'll then tell you if it's still safe or not. Brilliant.
John, I'm monitoring the chat. If there's any questions, please, folks, you're most welcome to shoot them over or grab us individually. You're most welcome.
Absolutely. And today, now's the time to answer any questions. I hope that this has given some insight in terms of the growth of attacks, 1,200% increase, the mass automation of these attacks, which makes it easier and cheaper for attackers than ever, or ultimately, what sort of protections are available to you. That works with you, ultimately within there. We'll find out what it is, and we're then going to find out how we can assist by running one of these AI-driven detection assessments within your environment to help make sure that we build resilience seamlessly without affecting anyone. Cool. So thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it. Ahead of schedule, it really is important that we start to act. So thank you so much for giving us time this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, John. Thank you everyone for joining us. Good afternoon.